Now, as you probably know, US inner cities has been a bad state for several decades. They tend to be high crime areas with a lot of vacant buildings and so on. Today, we'll talk about how this happened and what's being done about it. Well, first, you can't talk about the decline of the city inners without looking at the growth of the suburbs because the two are connected. There was and still is a huge demand of suburban housing in the last 30, 40 years or so. So what we've seen all over the country is a lot of development of areas just outside the cities, areas that were once farmlands. A crest of lands is given over to suburban housing. We call it suburban sprawl because of the way the houses are kind of spread out all over the countryside. As the suburbs grow, the inner cities decline. Well, you can imagine how this happens. When people move to the suburbs, it's more convenient for them to shop at the shopping malls closer to home. So the department stores in downtown area, they don't get as much business and maybe eventually they have to close. You see this particularly in small and mid-sized towns. You might have an area that has quite a large population, but the downtown is dead, especially at night. As a result of that, we had growing crime rates and poverty in downtown areas, so people are afraid to go there at night. So there ends up being less cultural life in these towns. So city planners have been trying to attract people back to the cities. It's become a necessity, really, because you can keep building suburbs forever, and people don't want to commute 2 or more hours to get to their jobs. They want to come back to live in the cities, but you have to make the conditions right. So how do you do that? Well, city planners are using an approach called smart growth as a way to plan neighborhoods and revitalize inner cities. I'll explain some of the main characteristics of smart growth. First, smart growth encourages diversity of use. For example, many planners believe now it's healthy to have some light manufacturing, say bakeries, printing presses, mixed in with retail and residential buildings all together in the same area. And one reason to do this is that the street has people it all day long. You've got the people who work there during the day and the people who live there coming back in the evenings. The area is used more, sidewalks are busy. This makes it possible for stores and restaurants to open up to serve all of these people, which in turn encourages more people, and then that makes a neighborhood more attractive. Okay, secondly, you want to have a diversity of housing. Instead of having streets and streets of identical houses, like you have in the suburbs, you have to have a mix of single family homes, townhouse, and apartment buildings that would encourage a wider range of people in terms of ages and income levels to live in areas so people can stay in a community. They can move up to a larger house or move to a smaller house when they get older without leaving the community. The other big aspect of smart growth is to make it possible for people to walk to schools, public libraries, stores, and so on. So you put these things within walking distance of residential neighborhoods. It's also important to have attractive places outside, places to gather or sit and relax. This brings people out onto the streets, and the streets that have people in them are safer streets. When you have safer streets, you have more people wanting to live downtown, and that causes demand for more housing, and that in turn revitalizes inner cities even more. Now, one city where this thing is being done is Pittsburgh. Let's have a look at some photographs that were taken.